Hello, welcome to the Thinking in Tech podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dylan. I'm joined here today with my co-host, Baz.
Howdy.
And this is the Thinking in Tech podcast. It's a podcast about two guys that work in tech, and we like to talk about tech. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We have a great show today. We'll be chatting about some of the recent happenings in court between like the social media giants. And of course, we can't talk about tech in the year 2026 without talking about AI. We'll be talking about a little bit of kind of surprising news that OpenAI has decided to shut down their AI generated video platform. Yep. But before we get started, if you're watching on YouTube, if you'd be kind enough to click on the like button, and feel free to comment below and chat with us a little bit. That goes a long way to helping us get discovered and allowing more people to find our podcast. And if you like what you see, feel free to click on the subscribe button so you can get future episodes. Yeah. All right. So before we get started with the news, Baz, is there anything interesting you've been up to lately, or anything cool going on?
Well, I went to Miami last week for the Miami Open. My wife's a big tennis fan, and so I had to make a point of visiting the Micro Center there. Now, if you're not familiar, they're not a household name yet. Uh, they are sort of nationwide, but they don't have a million locations like a Best Buy. Micro Center is by my measurement the absolute best computer and electronics store that exists right now. They don't sell washers and dryers, but they do sell Raspberry Pis, every computer imaginable. They have a huge 3D printer area. They have a huge maker area where you can just go buy breadboards and electronics components. It's like, um, a good old computer store and Radio Shack and all of the hobbyist electronic stuff you could imagine put into one. So I went there, and that's amazing. If you've got one nearby and you've never gone, make a point to go.
That is awesome. I have never been to a Micro Center before. I want to make the trip to Miami just to experience it because that sounds like a grown-up trip to Disneyland for me, or at least a nerd's trip to Disneyland, right?
It's better
And
than Disneyland.
it's better than Disneyland. There you go. So I'm gonna make a weekend to make the trip down. What was it, like a 3-hour drive from Sarasota?
It's about 3 hours, yeah.
Okay, yeah, not bad. Make a weekend trip down there. And so it's kind of similar. It's like a larger Radio Shack, kind of like what Radio Shack used to be. Like
I would say
I'm
it's
thinking
got
like a
like a
mix
Radio
between Radio Shack
Radio
and
Shack
Best Buy.
section,
Okay,
but like think like Best Buy and like take out the appliances, but
right. You
then
were saying it
put
doesn't have the
in
fridges and the washing machines.
right uh, and put in like hobbyist electronic stuff. So
Hmm.
they've got to had a big push. Oh, and of course you can go there and just build your own PC. So they have
That's so
all of
cool.
the white box PC components there, and they have the equivalent of a Geek Bar, so you can like buy your components,
Hmm.
and like they can assemble it for you if you want, um, that kind of thing. So it's really, I don't know, it's not targeted to just the regular people who would go just buy a computer. Um, it it's targeted to people who like to get into the the weeds and the nitty gritty. You can, of course, just go there and buy a computer. But it's got all this other stuff, and that's what makes it cool.
Awesome. Yeah, like I kind of wish there was one in my city, but at the same time, it's probably a good thing there's not one because my wallet would probably be really unhappy. So it's
I was
probably
gonna
not
say
a bad thing. I gotta make a little bit of a trek for it.
like Disney, but more expensive.
Yep. And on my side of things, not a whole lot to share really. I've been working on lately. I have a lot of great ideas, but it's that kind of issue with finding the time to work on things. So I got a great video game idea in my head. I like played around with some of the open source video game engines recently. Unity is the one I put like a lot of time into, but with school and everything, I haven't really had a chance to build really start building something in it. But one of the classes I'm planning on signing up for is actually a video game development class, and they do that in Unity. So I'm hoping once I start that class, hopefully next semester, I can kind of get a chance to start something, get credit for it in school, and then continue afterwards, and maybe work on a project.
So just so I have this right, You're talking about a college course
That's right.
for video game programming.
Yep, yeah, they have one at, they have a few actually at, Georgia Tech on their program. They got one that's just I think it's just video game development class, and they have,
Okay,
like, AI in video game, and they have, like, computer graphics in video games.
awesome.
Um, yeah, some of them are, just, like, the electives, and some of them are, like, actual just, like, foundational classes, so, I'm definitely gonna try to load up on as many of those as I can. Alrighty, well, let's go ahead and jump into the news for this week. So we'll start off with social media companies have seems like for the first time, really, since they've been around, are starting to be held accountable in court. So Meta and Google, so they were found to be to blame for depression, anxiety towards users who compulsively used the social media as children. I have a quote here. It says the jury has found that social media apps should be treated as defective products for being engineered to exploit the developing brains of kids and teenagers. So that's pretty big. I feel
That's
like that's a
pretty
pretty
heavy.
big thing. Yeah.
That's pretty heavy. Yeah. Let's see. There's another note here. The litigation has drawn comparisons to the legal
Hmm.
crusade in the 90s against tobacco companies, um, which forced the industry to stop targeting minors with advertising. Yeah, I smoked for 5 years when I was young and foolish, and I remember when that happened. And Camel cigarette brand in particular had this Camel, like Joe Camel character, sort of drawn as a cartoon character, and they were that was a key one where they were making the argument like you're targeting kids with this
Hmm.
cartoon character. Um, I don't know, kids. I started because my friends were doing it, and it really wasn't about advertising at all. Um, but it's this is a topic that's gone uh, that comes around every so often. How much influence does media have on us as individuals? Um, you know, um, and there's honestly there's arguments on both sides, and it probably does depend on the individual, right? Like TV ads, like when a TV ad comes on, I get up and walk away, or
Yeah.
look at something on my phone. Like I don't think that advertising influences me in any way, but how would I know?
I do the same thing. I don't even want to see it. And when my partner and I first got together, she thought I was like it was weird or crazy. I'd always mute the ads, or I'd turn off the ads, or I would just, I like didn't even want them playing. But like 10 years later, now if she hears like an advertisement on, she's like, "Oh, this is weird. Why can't I hear this ad?" And you mute this ad. So she kind of, yeah. Once you kind of block those things out, you get them blocked out.
But at the same time, and I probably did that when I was a kid in the 70s as well, right? Like, not tune in, but I can remember so many commercials and the jingles, the songs and the music for those jingles. I can't remember, you know, my what I had for lunch yesterday, but I could remember um TV ads
Yeah,
from
I can
50
think.
years ago.
Yeah. By
So,
design, and I'll give,
yeah.
back to, my partner. She'll just, like I'll hear her just randomly kinda, like, singing a chime from a commercial. I'm like, "Wow, they did their job. They got to you." And she's like, "Oh, I know, they got to me, I hate it," but, like, it caught in my head this TV commercial that hasn't come
Yeah,
on in 20 years, right?
right. So another area that's gotten this sort of scrutiny, of course it was music also kind of in the 90s. Music was scrutinized by Congress. There were 80s and 90s, right, for music negatively affecting people. In the 80s, it was heavy metal. Heavy metal music was considered satanic, and um, pardon me. Um,
And our
and
next
then
guest.
it became rap, right? So rap got a bad rap in the 90s for being a negative influence on kids. And um, then of course video games was a thing.
Mhm.
So there's people are always looking, I think, for something to blame for kids acting badly.
I think
Um,
there's some great examples. I think like with the music thing, it's like they're creating art and like they're expressing themselves through art and it's how other people perceive or taking the art and people might have opinions on that art, but it's they are making a creative product. They're not trying to like get anyone addicted to anything or get
Yeah.
them. It's like almost like gambling. And then that's interesting you say video games because
Hmm.
for most of the time video games has been around, it's actually been kind of similar to that music, that art, when it's like a single player story. But
Right.
recently, when they start getting the loot boxes thing, where that actually becomes more like gambling, then that kind of where that draws that line, that issue. And that's actually, that's a whole nother story. But I think recently in New York, they had an issue where they said, like Counter Strike is not allowed to sell their loot boxes anymore unless they make their game like accessible only to like casinos or something in New York because they're like it's gambling and it's addictive.
Interesting.
And that's I think that's one big point about this case was I think I had another quote written down here. Yeah, here it is. So Meta's apps, including Instagram and Google's YouTube, the jury concluded were deliberately built to be addictive, and the company's executives knew this and failed to protect their youngest users. So
Right.
this is like,
Yeah,
mhm,
there's those examples I mentioned already, but then there's sort of another category of examples. Casinos and gambling, the machines in casinos and the casino environment in general are full of flashing lights and rapid light movements and
mhm,
sound, and all of these things are put together in a way to make it addictive. Um, so not only is the gambling itself addictive, it, um, but they make they amp it up, right?
yeah, that
They add all these things that people know will do. So social media is kind of that way.
mm,
Maybe
yeah,
there's that
exactly.
the
I think
focus
that
on the short form, like the 5-second TikToks and stuff like that. Um, you could probably argue is along those lines.
I think the biggest difference with a casino though is a 13-year-old can't get a casino and start gambling. I think that's a
That's
major
true.
part of the case. It's like
Yeah.
saying you guys are doing this knowing that has a negative effect on underage users using it and are like continue full speed ahead, continue doing it. So yeah, it's interesting to see what will result from this case because it seems like it's the first time these companies have been kind of held accountable. I think there's some like laws like Section 230 or something where like it basically gave them safe blanket from any kind of court rulings or whatever. I'm not a lawyer, so sorry. Excuse me if whatever I'm saying is not the correct way to say things. But it'll be. I feel like this normally when there's a case like this, more tend to follow now that they've like okay, this court has decided one thing, and then it'll be interesting to see how these companies will have to change their products to protect for what as as the court sees will protect children.
Right. What I'm not clear about is whether this case has remedies besides the financial penalty. Um, like for like a requirement that they change how the apps are built or something like that.
That'll be
Um,
interesting. Yeah,
because that in the tobacco lawsuits, that was, it wasn't just about the money. It was about, hey,
right.
we're not going to let you advertise. Well, that goes way back, even before my time. They stopped cigarette advertisements, but um, you know, um, they banned certain kinds of depictions, and um, there's the warning labels,
Hmm.
uh, things like that. So there's a lot of different directions this could go,
I feel like if
and
they want to make a change, they have to do it in that way because if you ask them
mhm.
for 100, $200 million, that's just like a tax for them that they happily pay if they're able to continue doing it in their, current structure.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? So that was jury is found. Da, da, da. I don't know. In our notes,
Hmm.
there's a separate case that we could talk about,
That's
but
the last quote right above the link there.
yeah, a lot
So,
of times these fines are, like you said, they're just pocket change to these big
mhm.
companies. Like $100 million. It sounds like a lot of money to you and me, but
These trillion-dollar companies, like,
yeah,
that's just a
it's
tiny,
nothing.
tiny little bit. Yeah. It's
It's
pocket
nothing.
change
It's
for them.
rounding error.
Yeah, exactly.
So they tend those types of fines tend not to be successful at manipulating the behavior.
Exactly. So, yeah, do you think this is good? Do you think this is bad? How do you feel about potentially these companies or might be forced to change the way they do things a little
Well,
bit?
this is an interesting tack, right? So this is specifically about kids being
I
easy
believe that's
to,
the yeah.
yes, kids being easy to manipulate, which of course is true.
Hmm.
The mind of children is in a state of plasticity at kind of that young age, and even up to and sometimes past age 18, where it becomes so important for young people to try to fit in,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So
you're saying how you started smoking earlier, right? Because you
yeah,
said people
right.
around you did it.
Yeah,
Very similar.
and I consider myself a smart guy and above the whims of the herd, right? And
Hmm.
I've never been a herd follower, but shoot, that was like that. I will say the first time I ever smoked a cigarette, I wanted another one for 3 weeks. Like I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's how addictive that was, right? So it's um there is there is some truth to addictiveness, and would I be that addictive to it today? Maybe not. Uh, though I do see plenty of adults who get uh, depression and anxiety from participating in social media on a
Oh,
regular
yeah.
basis.
Yeah. I
Uh,
feel like there's so much that's even unseen in this country about like what some of social media has done, like because you get caught up in these like confirmation bias algorithms. And I feel like it'll be interesting to see if they are forced to like age gauge it at all. Will they only have to, because the focus of these court cases are the algorithm is addicting. So will they
right.
like have an age gate? Like you can only use the algorithm if you're 18 and older, and for other users, you just have to see them in chronological order, or it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Because I
There's
know,
a
yeah,
there's another angle, which is not just or the addictive nature, right? The way they structure the apps, the way they present information, um, but also um, it's been discovered, right, that um, these companies know and leverage rage baiting, right?
yeah.
So they feed you content that makes you angry,
Because what I was
because
like,
that
enragement
generates,
equals engagement, right? That's
yeah,
like
that
that's the thing
generates
I've been hearing
engagement.
lately.
You're
Yeah,
mad. Like if it's like, okay, whatever, right? You just skip on past, you're not probably going to engage with it. If it's something that's, positive, right? You'll engage with it. But if it's something that makes you mad,
you're
you're
gonna
going to,
stop right there, get on your phone, you're gonna stop
yeah,
everything you're doing and comment back and tell this guy why he's stupid and why you're right, and then you got five other
yeah,
people join in, and
yeah.
yeah,
Every
that's not
internet
healthy, right?
post about every social media post about a controversial topic is people hating each other. Um,
Yeah,
and I think sometimes I think, well, this is brand new technology. Like people have been disagreeing with each other from the beginning of time and um, learned learned boundaries, right?
yeah,
Like I'm not going to discuss certain things in certain company because there's no profit to it, right? To get people upset, right? So you just avoid topics that are controversial. Um, but there there's this intense social pressure to be very cautious when you're in person with someone,
mm-hmm.
right? About not making people upset. And there's a lot of instant feedback that you get, right? If someone's uncomfortable with a line of, you can just back off and talk about the weather. But in the social media, and this is something I observed, way back from the beginning of the internet, is you don't get those cues. You don't
Yeah,
get those social cues back. Um, and there's another cue, which is like just, good naturedness, right? Like it's so easy to read something on the internet and assume that someone is yelling it or yelling in your face it, even if they weren't that, because you ascribe like your emotional reaction to them too. So it fundamentally, I think this technology needs to be reworked because it does have a lot of negative consequences. Obviously, there's incredible value to be gained. Um, what we're doing here, right? Um, just general social media, the kind of participation I have on Facebook and the Apple II forums, the Apple II groups on Facebook. That stuff's just all amazing. Um,
agreed.
every so it's not universally bad, but we these platforms could they certainly have with the AI that's out now. They certainly have the ability to figure out when things are getting heated and maybe tweak the algorithm. So automatically put some separation there. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
that'd be the nice
but
thing if they did that. And I think the farthest is saying they choose not to do that, and then if anything, they turn it up.
yeah,
Kind of knowingly been doing that. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where this goes from here. I think, at least again, because, like no one feels good after being in one of those conversations walking around. It makes you feel stressed and depressed,
yeah,
right? And then,
right.
so as adults, you feel that way. You imagine how kids are feeling that way, doing that to each other. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it'll be the right first step to kind of just maybe prevent kids from doing that. And as adults, we try figuring out ourselves because as adults, I guess we should be able to figure those things out with. I don't know. You can't really rely on the company. It's a big issue. It's the reason why it's been an
Yeah.
issue for like 20 years, right? And I'm not sure if anyone really knows the answer.
Well, shoot, even I ran a bulletin board system, with the 300 baud dial-up modem back
Mm,
uh, in my teenage years, and it was the same. It was the same. I mean, we'd get into these, attack fests, try to one up each other, try to insult each other. Uh, it, you just put that screen in between
yeah,
people, and this is what you get.
yeah. We'll see what happens. I feel like we're gonna be hearing a lot more about this in the future and like updates to that, maybe that case and other cases. So it'll be interesting to see how this evolves. But
For
we'll
sure.
see what happens with that. We'll go ahead and jump into our next news story, which is OpenAI is shutting down their generated AI video platform Sora. Um, you hear about this in the news, Buzz?
No, I hadn't yet. This was so Sora was for video or for like
Yep, that
pictures?
was video. So this was like
Oh,
pretty
okay.
much a text to video program they had. I think it came out maybe fully last year. It might have been maybe 2-ish years already. Um, but I feel like this is the first thing that Open AI, since they've kind of come out into the woodwork, has seemed like they've been going up and up with all their products and making huge amounts of money, just all the investment in AI. And it feels like this is the first thing that seems like it just didn't work out for them, that they're turning off, that they're
Hmm.
stopping.
Right.
Uh,
Well, this was a partnership with Disney, right? So Disney's interest is clearly to make video content, with
yeah.
AI. Maybe they have a different partner they want to work with. Maybe the OpenAI tech just wasn't good enough. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe. I know there's like it was almost like a licensing thing from Disney because with the problem with a lot generative AI, people are like, it's building stuff with stuff we own, but we're not getting a bit, of the money. So I think this was Disney originally trying to get ahead of that. And like, go ahead and pay us because it's ours anyway. So let's skip all the legal drama and give us, let's partner up and had that $1 billion agreement. And I feel like that was one of the first examples you saw of like a traditional media company making a deal with an AI company.
Hmm.
Because before
Yeah.
that, they were all fighting each other and saying, "Hey, this is our content. We own that. We're going to sue you." And then AI's company was like, "No, we have a right to this content because it's on the internet." And Disney was like, "Let's just make a deal." But I'm wondering, I'm wondering if this happened because maybe Disney decided that deal wasn't worth it, or if the deal just doesn't go through because OpenAI decided it wasn't a good product for them to have. And if they're shutting it down, Disney is like, well, that's a free, out of that deal. And then Disney still got to
Yeah.
look good, like they were innovative with AI. So I'm sure that they're still the stock price or whatever. Who knows? I feel like anytime you mention or make a deal with AI, it's good for the stock price.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's the sort of we're in buzzword territory like we were
Yeah,
back in the late 90s internet boom. Uh, every dumb product idea you could ever imagine, if you just say on the internet, it made your company
yeah.
immensely
.com,
valuable.
right? You have a website. Every company should have the website name right underneath the logo.
Yes. And
um,
there is a certain segment of investors who fall for that sort of thing pretty regularly.
yeah.
So, whatever works, I guess.
And like, so they, of course, as OpenAI doesn't say exactly why they did. They're just like, we are deciding to discontinue the service, and I'm wondering if there's a thing that just the user base for it wasn't very high, because basically, at least in the last like kind of like you still might be able to get on it, but I would say the current iteration of it, it was kind of almost trying to be like a TikTok, like a scrollable social media, but
Okay.
with generated videos people would make. I wonder if people just didn't really care about that because it was all fake and generated, like. It's kind of it's funny as fun. I got on there once. I shared something on our Discord of something I made, um, and it's just like, oh, that's a silly video, and for taking 10 seconds to type something out and have it like generate like a realistic looking video, it's impressive. But I wonder if it has just a short wow factor for users, and once they kind of do that
Yeah,
once
that
or
could be.
twice, they're just kind of like whatever and move on. They don't use it anymore.
I maybe I well, and there probably, I mean, every time I try to make a picture with AI, I don't get what I want.
Hmm.
And I've certainly seen there was certainly a big boom in sort of these short videos. Like, there's been things like reimagined movie trailers, right? Like, what if Star Wars had been, directed by some other famous
Like Wes
director? So
Anderson or something. Yeah, I've seen
yeah,
those.
like, and then show what that would look like. So that's not, there's novelty there, but it's not easy to do
Yeah, you
in my
almost like
impression.
you can't really create what you want with it. You can give an idea and then it creates
Right.
what it wants. And there's a novelty of watching what it makes. But I don't like you couldn't make a movie with it really, or at least not the movie you want to make with it.
No.
And I imagine at just making these short clips for free is probably really expensive, energy wise. So I wonder if there's just also
Yeah.
just like a cost issue where they're like, we're not making any money from this. And now, Claude is running away with, the business to business customers right now. And we're focusing on making these AI generated videos. I wonder if this was like OpenAI saying, okay, we need to kind of focus in and get serious and try to follow the real money and start actually
Well,
making money with their
and
investment.
there are a bunch of these sites, services that are for making music and
Hmm.
pictures and video and stuff. Maybe maybe part of it is, hey, let's focus on what we think our core business is, and not
Yeah.
try to be every conceivable application of AI.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that being the case because it's kind of like we were saying, like with the .com boom. It was like all I had to do was say, I have a website, I have .com, and so OpenAI is like, I can do this with AI, I can do this with AI, and the money's coming flooding in. But maybe now it's been a few years, people are kind of like, okay, but how does it make money? Where's the
Yeah,
profit? And people might
right.
be asking that question now, and OpenAI's maybe they have to start answering that. So they're
With
focusing on what can make money.
with all the money they're spending, they probably have a lot of investors asking them, "Where's the money?" Or
Exactly.
when do we make money?
Like, this is
Uh,
cool, but we gave you a lot of money, and it's been a few years now. We haven't seen anything
yeah.
come in yet. So does this make money? So,
Claude is a good general purpose, sort of search engine type use,
mhm.
but it's really focused on software engineering, right?
But that's such a
That's
big
my,
thing, right? Like,
yeah.
it's one of the core uses of AI for building new products, new software. And from what I've seen, it's like when Claude Code came out, they basically won AI for software developers.
Hmm.
I don't have the actual data in front of me, but I'm pretty sure I've seen just like a bar chart of like 1 year ago, OpenAI with like business to business, they were here and Anthropic was here. And now it's reversed. And once you get those environments created for building software and you get used to it and you like it, it's not so easy to switch to another one, or you don't have a huge incentive to switch to another one unless what you're currently using you feel like doesn't do what you need it to
Hmm.
do.
Right. Um, Something just crossed my mind. A lot of the power in Claude Code and uh, in Cursor, which is what I primarily work in, is the agents. And the agents are getting
Mhm.
a lot more sophisticated in the way they can coordinate multiple sub-agents and things like that to help break down tasks and focus on them. I wonder if uh, those challenges in producing videos will be um, dealt with by like firing off agents. Like you'd have an agent focusing on like the main character and then another agent,
That's
doing
interesting.
background interactions so that each, it's not one just trying to, well, we know how these things work, right? They're just, essentially, tab completion.
Yeah.
uh, and so, um, breaking it down. And I haven't seen any of that sort of agentic approach yet in images or video. So maybe that's coming.
Maybe nobody saw about that yet. We'll cut this part out of the podcast and we'll get to
I,
work, you know?
I a total aside, but there's a million times when I thought, man, that's a great idea, and it was because 500 other people have already done it, and
That's how you know it was a good idea, I guess. Yeah, been
yeah,
there. Definitely been there. Uh,
so we'll see.
it's kind of a whole nother topic, but so have you found yourself using those like agentic agents for developing? Um,
Yeah, it's so in Cursor, it went really from a chat kind of interface over the last year and a half to an
mhm.
agent focused interface. Um,
Okay.
they've been really rapidly developing, and of course, that's what Claude Code is.
So when you
It's
say agent, you mean like you talk to it and then it says, okay, let me go through the code. Let me search the web. Here's where I want to change the code. You can set to auto change or you can read and approve it. Is that what you mean by agent or do you mean?
Well, I should probably do a little thinking about this and some reading. I'm not 100%. I couldn't clearly define what an agent is
I feel like the
at this
terms are
point.
kind of different between different groups. There's not like a
Yeah,
defined. When I think of agent, I almost think of something you can give it like 5 tasks and then it goes through one by one those tasks.
yeah. It's
Um,
I would maybe try to define an agent as a system that uses LLMs as a component in an overall system, and some of that is
okay.
done
Yeah, I agree with
by
that.
helping to structure information about tasks um, that make it easier for the LLMs to reason about the task, and also just breaking things down into pieces that can be more easily digested, which is just what
Mhm.
as human beings we do uh, normally. One of the really interesting things is these days, if you have like a thinking model, like if you're using Opus or Sonnet, um, it'll show you um, the thinking, which is a lot of sort of stream of consciousness stuff,
It's
and the
kinda,
way
like, interesting. It's, like, kinda how I would think about working through code sometimes. I'm like,
it's
that's very
exactly that,
similar.
like that
Yeah.
internal dialogue, um,
Yeah.
where I'm like, and I take notes. I mentioned before, I keep a development journal, so
Mhm.
that thinking that scrolls by before it summarizes it all is a lot of it reminds me a huge amount of my development journal because and even just the way I write things, like, well, but what about, this and this, but no, that's not right because this other thing. And it's,
You
um,
see it almost like thinking with itself about steps. And it doesn't just
yeah,
like automatically do the right one. So
right.
yeah,
And
no,
so
that's
that's
a
part of sorry, that was my cat. Uh, uh,
our next
that's
guest, the cat.
Yes, meow. That's part of the agentic system, I think, is
Hmm.
getting at maybe asking multiple times about the same question or slightly or variations of the question or something like that, and getting a bunch of different responses and sort of correlating it back, which must be the sort of thing that we do when we're thinking about, decomposing problems, is to look at it from different angles, uh, you know, ask questions about it, uh, and then use the responses to kind of generate the next stage. So I think, I guess we were applying this to images and in videos, and I had not seen that in image and video AIs yet. So
Agreed.
maybe
I
maybe we
wonder,
should hide this portion.
or maybe they've just been trying to, and for making videos at this point, it's just too much going on where it doesn't work quite yet, or they just, they want to spend their money elsewhere to make money. But
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what happens with the future of AI video generation, because I feel like a lot of people don't like. A lot of people are kind of able to see when something's AI. There's like a certain kind of polish, a look to it, even with like videos. I feel like there's people have a negative feeling about that in a lot of the cases because you know, I almost just I feel like some people might feel like it cheapens experience because they part of the appreciation of what they're watching is knowing that it's art, and like there's
yeah.
a lot of people.
Somebody slaved over it. Yeah,
Exactly, and someone had to learn, through many years to how to create this art, and then they come up with something worth sharing, and then the whole process involved there. And I feel like people might feel cheapened out of it if they know it was just, a paragraph. And I think it was like a Coca-Cola ad last Christmas that a lot of people got really mad at. And I think it's that same thing.
right,
So maybe even if the technology is there to make this kind of content, there's the reaction it gets from people viewing the content. Um, they just it's not positive. And if it's not positive, they're like, Why should we continue doing
right.
this?" So I don't know if that's has anything to do with it or not, but that's just thinking out
Yeah.
loud.
At the same time, making modern movies with, and I'm sure this was Disney's interest, making modern movies with animation is incredibly
Yeah,
expensive and fraught with problems. And a lot of movies that have come out in the past couple years have just awful uh, animation. And
yeah,
I
because
don't
they got
mean animated movies, like, cartoon
the
movies. I
computer
mean, like,
graphics, right? For some
yeah,
parts, yeah.
like, superhero movies. And some of them have had great, animation, and some of them have had kind of amateur. And there's a huge amount of pressure to get these things out
Get these
fast.
release dates. They gotta be done when they're done. It's almost similar to some software projects if you work for certain
Yeah, right.
companies. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're
So if
tied
you're a
to a
movie
date.
studio, you want to remove that risk if you can, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
have all these artists and designers and, script writers or actors. Why do we need those people now? We can just sit all on the computer. Uh, so there's going to be pressure, right? Continued pressure to develop this technology, I think, just from because the business case is so strong. Um, but
I mean,
you know,
there's always a kind of back and forth between what the consumers want, what the business leaders want, and then what the people actually making the things want to do.
yeah,
So it's
right,
that tug of war there. So um, it'll be interesting to see how this pans out in the future and what the future of movies look like and the future of AI video generation. Ready? I almost forgot we have a third story today. Yeah, we can go ahead and jump in that. This one will be a little quicker, but this is just PlayStation 5 got a big price increase.
mm,
Here's a quote from Sony, who creates the PlayStation and sells it. With continued pressure in the global economic landscape, we made the decision to increase the price of PS5, PS5 Pro, and PlayStation Portal Remote Player globally. PS5 when it first came out 6 years ago, it was $499. Now it's $650. So I think this is actually the second price increase. I think that one last year too. So the regular PS5 has like the disc drive. You can put disc in it if you buy them physically. The digital edition went from, launch at $399. Now it's $699. So it's what, that's $200 more. And then the Pro launched at $700. Now it's $900. So like everything, it seems like all three of them have gone almost $200 higher in the last 2 years, which is insane because it's a 6-year-old video game console. With the normal patterns of video game consoles being released, normally we would have the PS6 by now, and the PS5
Uh,
would be in like the clearance bins. They would have a bunch of price cuts and bundles now with free controllers and games, but this is the complete opposite.
yeah, well, so 6 years, of course, we had COVID inflation in the middle of
Hmm.
that. Um, and I'm not that represents what, like a 20%, 15 to 20% price increase. That sort of seems in line with other sort of inflationary things I've seen. And of course, of late, there's been um, tariffs and the RAM shortage caused by,
Hmm.
AI. So, um, I guess on the one hand, I'm not too surprised at that. But on the other hand, the history of the Apple II was the Apple II had a motherboard that was just packed with TTL chips. When the Apple IIe came out, they condensed a bunch of that into custom logic,
Hmm.
um, so that oh, and then by 1985, they had actually put the entire internals of an Apple IIe on a single chip, and that chip found its way into a number of other products at Apple. So after 6 years, you would think that the price to manufacture would have gone through a
Right.
few
And
iterations of engineering to bring the
I wish I had
costs
the
down.
example behind me, but yeah, there's original like the PS2 when that came out. I think every PlayStation has done this, but the PS2 I feel like is the most drastic one. They have a really big, almost like tower kind of console, kind of looks like the Xbox behind me, and
Uh-huh.
then like 2 or 3 years later, they come out with a super skinny one, smaller one. They're able to make it for cheaper parts and sell it for like half the cost, but it still
Yeah, Moore's
runs
law.
just as well. Yeah, exactly. Maybe Moore's law, maybe slowing down a little bit in the last few years. I think that's an interesting point you mentioned with the big inflation spike that happened a few years back. I don't think the price for these consoles raised. I think that back then, even though of course everything got more expensive, so they weren't making as much money on it. So I think that was a
Yeah.
business's decision then to not raise the cost for that. And
Yeah,
now with
they
the
sat on
RAM
it for a while,
shortage,
and now they just can't not
yeah, and they're
raise the
like, we
price.
we we didn't do it last time, but we gotta do it now this time. If anything, they might be playing catch up a little bit. And so yeah.
And if the sales are still strong, like, if the sales are strong, like, that's an incentive to raise the price too.
Yeah, but that's kinda another thing, this like, the sales are okay, but
Yeah.
it's not at the pace where the PS4 was, what was it, 6 or 7 years ago. So, I think we talked about, like, this in a previous episode maybe, we had a little bit of a video game, bit. Um, so it's like, they're not it's not crazy high demand, and it's been out for 6 years, so I feel like almost everyone who wanted one probably has one by now. There's
Well,
like
it's
newborn babies who are 6 years old now that might be playing their first like Astrobot, like kids game. Like they might be getting the console, but besides that, I don't know.
right. Okay. Well, annual PlayStation console this is all old data. Um, this is this is from Reddit. So,
Hmm.
um, the first 6 months they sold, according to this, 8 million units of the PlayStation 5.
Hmm.
In the last 2 years, it looks like maybe they've sold another, right, 25 million units or more. So, that's pretty good.
It's still
Um,
steady. Yeah, I had a whole document with a bunch of like charts and everything for this for some other project I was working on. I wish I knew where that was. I could reference that now. But from what I remember looking at that, It the rate of, like, sales is almost the same as a PS4, but that's disappointing from a business point of view because they actually want it to be they wanna be doing better at
Mhm.
the same time span as a previous console. So
Right.
it's it's like no growth. I think even though they're selling, they're continuing to sell consoles every year, to them they don't see it as growth. I think that's an issue in
Right.
their
I
mind.
would imagine that's pretty hard. I mean, a video game console is uh pretty significant investment. I mean, you've got the
Mhm.
console itself and they're now at 500-600 bucks and up, right? Um and then the games aren't cheap either.
That's just a big issue of gaming in general. Games are too expensive.
Yeah. I mean, they're movies. They have the production budgets of movies or more. So uh they're
It
expensive.
makes a lot to make them, and they gotta make money
Yeah.
from doing it, but there definitely
Uh
seems to be an imbalance because I love video games. I've obviously I talk about all the time, but like to buy a $70 video game, I might get like one every 4 months. And there'll be other games that
mhm.
come out. I'm like, that game looks great. I love to play that. I look forward to buying it in a year or so when I feel okay spending $70 on it. And like, I'm not super like I'd like to think I'm responsible with my money. I'm not overly like frivolous, or I don't know what the right word for it is, but I'm not like, I don't eat stone soup every night, but like dropping $70 on a video game, for you got multiple games coming out every month, like no one can buy all those.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, and I feel like they're talking about already kind of the next generation consoles coming out. So how expensive are those going to be for a brand new top of the line one when this 6-year-old console is, the Pro Edition is at $900 now, and you imagine the next console is going to be more powerful than the current generation Pro Edition. So are we getting to the $1,000 plus range for consoles? Are people going to buy those? At that point, do you just buy a really nice PC and
Yeah.
game
I
on
mean,
there?
people plunk down $1,000 for iPhones. So,
I
and
feel
apparently for Pixels, Google is constantly trying to sell me a
Are
new,
they? I didn't even know they
1 to
still made the
2,000.
Pixel.
Yeah, like I've never spent more than I think maybe 350, 400, something like that's the most I've ever spent on a cell phone. My assumption has been that I will probably break it
Yeah, right?
long before I get my value out of it, so I'm going to go cheap on it. Um, and that has held fairly true throughout my career. But I don't know. It's just it depends on, I guess, how big a deal it is to you. Right? I wouldn't spend $1,000 on a video game console.
I don't like yeah, me neither.
I have a
And
$1,000 PC that can play a bunch of great games.
there we got a PC and there's a big backlog, there's lots of great classic games. I feel that might be one reason why I feel like retro gaming has had a little explosion in the last few years because people
Well, yeah, because
are like, I can
it's
find great,
free.
it's about the gameplay, right? And yeah,
Yeah,
you can get you can pay as much as you want for them. You can pay a little bit, or
yeah,
even
right.
like even just buying one, like a physical one, most of the time it's not more than 20 bucks. And it's still a great time. And there's even a charm to some of the retroness to it. So
Mhm.
that would explain. I feel like retro video game is, probably bigger now than it's ever been. And um, could be the reason why modern games are just too expensive. So I think, I could definitely see this next console generation, if it comes even the next year or two, they're going to start being longer. I think I feel for like the last 30 years, I feel like it's been 5 to 6 years until like the next PlayStation or Xbox come out or Nintendo. I feel like
Mhm.
it's kind of like Moore's Law too. I feel like things might be starting to plateau a little bit. Like how much better
Right.
can you really make it for what you're doing? So
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, computers are just about infinitely fast at this point
yeah,
for almost any application. And I'm sure, gaming is one area where they can always find some way to use up whatever CPU and GPU they can throw at you. But um, honestly, it's hard to max out um, a modern computer with like normal applications. Even my, Apple II emulator, which runs in a busy loop, so it's just nonstop. It pegs one core at 100%. Um, but it's like 95% of the time, it's just waiting for the next frame, spinning to wait for the next frame. So it's using 5% of one core out of, 14 or 16 or however many I've got.
right.
So like, what do you do with that? I can run, 16 Apple IIs at the
Well,
same
well, it's
time.
yeah,
No, not
right.
16, it's 160.
I'm like, mine Bitcoin and run AIs locally.
Yeah, well, that local AI thing, we should delve into that at some point because uh, that's a sooner rather than later innovation, I think.
Yeah, I would say so. And I'm sure on a future episode we'll talk about the newly announced PlayStation 6 that costs $1,500. So that's I'm sure that'll be the next time we talk about these consoles and their prices. All right, well that's pretty much what we got for news today. We'll kind of start going to the outro section of the podcast. At the last episode we started doing tech recommendations, anything we've been using lately that we want to share or talk about. I'll go ahead and give mine today. I'll keep it on the theme of video games. I got the Nintendo Switch 2. I can see in there a reflection
Oh,
a couple months ago, and this
nice.
thing is awesome. It's like it's fun to get a new gadget. I feel like with smartphones, they kind of do everything. So I feel like in the last 15 years, we just don't get as many gadgets anymore. I love just getting a nice little portable gadget. They have these like magnetic controllers, and they just like snap onto place. Like I think that's so cool. I love the system itself,
Hmm,
just the hardware.
awesome.
And then it's like how I'm still able to play video games because it's so rare that I can just sit down on a couch for 2 or 3 hours and play a game. That doesn't really exist for me in my current life. But I can take this thing and have it on my bedside table and play a game for half an hour before I go to sleep,
Hmm.
get some gameplay
Yeah,
in. So I've been loving the Switch too. And it's basically, Switch 1, familiar with that. It's just that, but, the next generation graphics and a little bit of a bigger screen, which is nice. This came out, I think, last April. So it's already almost a year old. I didn't get it till around the end of the summertime. It was an early holidays gift. And, my partner, she has fun. We play Mario Party, play Mario Kart on it. The kids play Mario Party on it. So it's always easier to do some gaming is when you can include the family on it. So you're not like hiding
right,
in a room
right.
somewhere,
Yeah,
and they're like, "Where are you?"
right.
So
Yeah, we
yes,
still do board games to get that valuable family time.
absolutely. Yeah, we're our oldest is just starting to get into a little bit more complex board games that are more than
Yeah.
Candyland. So it's been
Hmm.
interesting
Right.
seeing how she does with those and getting her involved with those. And then the 2-year-old still has some time before she can start learning the rules, but she'll get there.
Cool. I actually have a little bit of when I was in Miami last week. Aside from Micro Center, I visited an old friend of mine who was an Apple IIgs programmer.
Cool.
He was part of a two-person company that produced a lot of stuff, and um, when he went out into the workforce after college, he got hired at a video game company because the Super Nintendo was used the same CPU chip as the Apple IIgs.
Right.
So he's had a lifelong career in the video game industry, and he currently works and lives in Miami for a company whose focus is porting games to the Switch.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so he gave us a 5-minute tour, gave us some Nintendo
Oh, that's
themed
awesome.
candy boxes. Uh,
What?
yeah. And so and I've got a couple pictures I'll share with you offline, but
Yeah, that's
you'll
awesome.
probably get a kick out of it.
Yeah, no, I'm very jealous, but I'm glad you also got to do that. That sounds awesome. We'll have to see if we can convince him to come on the show sometime, hang out
Yeah,
some.
maybe. Yeah.
And have him talk a little bit of his share some of his video game background. I know I'd love to hear about that, but I'm a big video game nerd, so I try not bring all my video gameness into this general tech podcast, but sometimes I can't help myself.
Well, then as today, um, I think gaming is a big part of why many people got into computers.
That's my story exactly. Yeah, so it is a big part of just kind of the tech community, I guess you would
Yeah.
say for sure. Alrighty. And also, we will do the This Day in Tech. This episode will be scheduled to release April 10th. So, on April 10th, 1988, was supposed to be the launch of the maiden voyage of the Columbia Space Shuttle. However, NASA engineers discovered a bug that forced them to delay the launch until the next day. Thankfully, after the bug resolved, NASA was able to launch the Columbia, and it had a successful test flight going around Earth 34 times before coming back down and safely landing. I think this is a great story. Why it's always important to test and monitor your software. Because imagine if they did not find that bug, it could have gone much more poorly. So thankfully,
Absolutely.
that didn't happen in that case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our Yeah, test your code and run tests and make the tests. You have time
And
to do it.
telemetry. Telemetry is key. Record, like, sample, test, measure, and store.
Yep, and especially if you're working on space rockets.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, that's the show. Thank you so much for listening to the Thinking and Tech podcast. Again, if you enjoyed the show, please make sure to follow us on your podcast service of choice, or if on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button if you enjoyed what you watch. It helps us out a lot, reach a bigger audience. And if you enjoyed what you saw today, subscribe for future episodes. And if you are somebody who might be interested in appearing on the show, email us at thinkingandtechpod@gmail.com. We'd love to have you on. And I'll just end with the views expressed in this podcast are completely of our own and do not reflect or represent the views of any past, current, or future employers. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.